Hi guys, welcome to Poseidon Sport Fishing Tackles and Charter. In part 1 of this video, we actually covered the different sizes of rods and different sizes of reels and what the specifications of rods and reels are. Now, as a beginner, you don't want to be spending too much, and with all these options, you will be as confused as most of the other people out there on thinking what rod and reel to buy as a beginner. As a beginner, probably the ideal one that you can go for would be either 9 or a 10-foot rod, because it will cover most of your applications, and from a reel, a size 4000 size reel will be ideal for you, and you will need to put some line on there. So in this session we'll cover the different types of line, but all the rod, reel and the line put together, you will be looking at around 4000 to 5000 rupees, and this will give you a very good setup to start with. Do not buy these combos that you see online on most of the sites, because what they do is they try and sell unbranded things, and what's going to happen is you're going to end up breaking them pretty soon. We've had a lot of customers who have actually walked in saying they bought some combo online thinking it's a bargain, and it's completely unbranded, and they ended up breaking it and later realizing that it's not the right thing to do. So always buy your tackles from a proper specialized tackle store, so that way they'll be able to guide you on what your actual requirement is and what will actually suit you, so that way you're not going to end up spending too much. So you can choose something within your budget, and you can actually get more advice and things from them as well. So going into part 2 of this session, lines. So once you've got the rod and reel, so you obviously need to put some line onto your reel. So there are two kinds of lines available in the market. So one is monofilament line, which is more of a nylon line, and then you have this thing called as braided line. They're normally polymer lines made out of either Spectra or Dynama. There's different things out there, but this is more like a fibrous line, so this is not a nylon line. So I'll go through the difference between them and when to use what and how to choose them. So with monofilament line, since it's nylon line, it actually has got a lot of stretch. So normally people, when they're using for freshwater fishing, they go for monofilament line, because the cost wise also it's quite less, and you can get away with monofilament line when you're doing freshwater fishing. And braided line has got zero stretch, and most of the sea fishermen that you see these days will be using braided line these days, because also the with more availability of braided line in the market these days, the prices have also drastically come down. So for almost similar price to a monofilament line, you'll be able to get a braided line. The advantage with braided line is when you're actually doing lure fishing, since there's zero stretch, every tap or every action that you impart on the rod tip actually translates straight to the lure, because there's zero stretch. So anything that you do, the vibration goes directly and the lure actually reacts as per your tap of the rod. But the same thing if you're using a monofilament line for lure fishing, what's going to happen, every tap or the action that you try to impart on the lure, it won't get translated to the lure because there's stretch in the line. So every tap, the lure is only going to get a little bit of your, probably 20 or 30% of the actual action that you're imparting in the tip. So ideally braided line is best when you want to do more of lure fishing. And if you're going to do just bait fishing, dead bait or live bait, whatever it might be, monofilament line might be more suitable for you cost wise as well as abrasion resistant wise. And going into the braided line, so there are different strands. So you'll hear this terminology called strands, 4 strand, 8 strand, and you also get 9 strand and 12 strand these days. So what it actually means is the braided lines are made using separate thin fibrous lines, different strands. So when it means it's a 4 strand line, 4 individual strands are spun together to actually make a line. When they say 8 individual strands of line are spun together to make this, and so forth. So what it means, when there is more strands, the line is much more smoother and much more thinner, and normally you'll find that the more strands you go for, more expensive it is. As a beginner, probably you can go with 4 strands because it's cost wise effective as well, and once you get more advanced, you can go for the 8, 9 or 12 as per your budget. So Another good thing to look at, so for instance, if you're using a 4-strand line and you're actually getting it, the fish is rubbing it against a rock, let's assume that 2 of the strands out of the 4 is actually getting cut. So what happens is you're going to actually lose half of the poundage of the line. For instance, if it's rated for 10 pounds and 2 of the strands is cut on the rock, so you're going to have only 2 strands left, which means that your line strength is going to come down by half, 50%. So it's going to be only 5 pound. But the same scenario in an 8-strand line, so if you're using an 8-strand line and you get the fish rubbing the line against the rocks, so it's cutting 2 of the strands out of the 8, what's going to happen? You're still going to retain 75% of the line's strength. So it's better to go for a higher strand, but cost wise you'll have to just balance it out between how much you actually want to spend on your thing and probably go accordingly. And also when you go into the braided line, you will see this terminology P being used these days, and what P actually means is the thickness of the line. P initially originated from Japan, where the Japanese were using it to measure the thickness of the silk. So the thickness of the silk determined what the price of the silk was. So if it was thin, it was cheaper. If it was thicker, so they used this terminology, which relates to, for instance, if it's P 0.6, which means that it's 0.128 mm, and if it's P1, it means that it's 0.165 mm. So most of the rods these days, you will have that rating written on it. It will either have pound rating, it will say 20 to 30 pound, or it will have the number of kilos. So it will say 20 to 30 pound, or 20 to or 15 to 20 kilos, or on some of the latest rods these days, they are getting more advanced. They actually mention the P, which is the right way to go for, because the rod is actually rated to work the best when you use that thickness of the line. So they rate it as P3 rod, P4 rod, or some rods will say that max P12, so which means that you can use up to 12 and things like that. So this is the right way to measure a line. The reason being, 2 different brands, the line thickness could be different. For example, brand A, same 10 pound could be thinner, and brand B, same 10 pound could be thicker. So when you're actually choosing the line for your reel, you want to try and choose the thinnest one as possible. So how do you know which brand has got which thickness? So going by the pound is not the right way. So when you're actually choosing a line for your reel, go by the thickness. Most of the reels will have the specifications written on there on what P it will take, or it will see that 0.165 175 meters, which means that your reel will actually take 175 meters of 0.165 line. So going by the pound is a wrong way to do. So when you go by PE rating, it's going to be more universal and the right way to do. For instance, if it says PE1, so PE1 translates to these numbers are available on the internet, by the way. So PE1 translates to 0.165. So the brand A, brand B, when they call it as PE1, are going to be of same thickness, but from the pound wise it could be different. Brand A P1 could be 20 pound, brand B could be 43 pounds. So go by the P rating or the specification on the box, as in what it says, point so much, how many meters that you will fit in. So ideally the best way to go is you want to try and fit as much as line as possible on your reel. So go for the thinnest line as possible on your reel. So this way, even when you're getting a bigger fish, you still have plenty of line on your reel to fight this fish. So hope this P terminology is a little bit clearer than what it was, because even a lot of advanced anglers still kind of confuse that P1 is actually related to the poundage, which is completely wrong. Hope you guys enjoyed this session. Like, share and comment on our videos. Thanks for watching.